Advertising sucks. It is unequivocally the worst industry when it comes to quality control. Every day, brands inundate the world with messages that are devoid of any value to a human being. So why does hundreds of billions of dollars get pumped into this industry every year? Well, obviously it's because advertisers are capitalistic demons that force people into buying products that they think they need and profiting off them. While I'm not 100% sure how many people actually believe that, as someone who studies the art of advertising, I find that notion to be patently false. Advertising sucks, but not for the reasons that you think. So let's talk about the truth of advertising. Essentially, advertising is a capitalist byproduct brought about by the abundance of choice. With so many products on the market, the primary differentiator to consumers is the brand, which is determined in part by advertising. All advertising does is articulate people's needs and desires. It lets people know about products and gives them ways to determine how they want to satisfy their needs in the most pleasurable way possible. It's not about convincing, it's about understanding. And if the operators in this industry don't understand that, the quality of advertising will continue to suffer. And unfortunately, there's this assumption that advertising works simply because you pay for it. While everyone technically needs food and shelter, doesn't mean that Pizza Hut can market to every living person on Earth. Having a frequency of soulless ads that berate people is really bad advertising. It's really annoying to see companies trying to burn their carcinogenic messages into the poor psyche of the average consumer. As I mentioned before, differentiation matters, and you cannot expect to sell a commodity and produce positive results for their quote-unquote brand. Articulate and concentrate. Know what you do best and execute on it through meaningful, honest communication. Please do better, industry. I beg of you. So many companies don't understand this, and it shows. Most of your work really sucks. But alas, there is a glimmer of hope. There have been occasional flare-ups of advertising genius that makes it all seem worth it. So let's turn our attention to the famous ads that Volkswagen and Avis conjured in the late 50s, early 60s, during the era that was dubbed the Creative Revolution. The Creative Revolution was the sweet spot where advertising was cool to consumers in a post-World War II world, while still being effective in improving the bottom line of business. This entire era of advertising was embodied by Bill Bernbach, a creative director at Doyle, Dane & Bernbach, one of New York's premier ad agencies. He brought writers and art directors in the same room to work together collaboratively, together, in the same room, on the same account. Shocking stuff. This was unprecedented at the time, and Bernbach finally eliminated the disjointed operations of the olden days. Finally, advertising had consolidated its efforts into one focus point: problem solving. In the case of Volkswagen, Germany was in a real awkward spot on the world stage, and they needed to be honest with where they stood. The Volkswagen Beetle was a silly little car designed by silly little Nazis. It was a hard sell. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, advertising is not about selling a product. It's about articulating the needs and desires of consumers. In a post-World War II world, hardworking Americans wanted honesty. And so that's what Bernbach delivered in such a beautiful manner. Think Small is so genuine, so honest, and so authentic that it couldn't help itself from resonating with people. Similarly, with Avis's We Try Harder, their insight into the true nature of the company is superb. Admitting you have inferior market share, but superior work ethic is such a deep cut into the truth consumers seek from brands every day. Volkswagen and Avis embody the essence of great advertising, being able to articulate truth in an uncompromising way. These ads own their ideas and are incapable of lying to the consumer. These were absolutely impeccable executions that drove business results through entrenching the communications in truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So yeah, when I think of great admin, I think of Bernbach. His genius was in his ability to ingratiate honesty into the fiber of brand communications. But I would also be remiss not to mention Helmut Krohn, the art director who collaborated with Bernbach to turn their vision into the litmus test for what great advertising needs to be. So fuck Don Draper with his alcoholism and annoyingly attractive ability to make smoking look cool. These guys were the actual mafia dons of the ad world. And while it is fun to nerd out and reminisce about these awesome ads, unfortunately, they're old, like really old. Bernbach is long dead, and the creative revolution already happened. The game has completely changed in respect to meaningfully impacting culture, like these iconic executions once did. Moving on from revolution to evolution, we need to understand that in 2020, there's this thing called the internet. and it's caused society to change a lot. Now, everyone has access to essentially anything and everything. This really changes how advertising has worked since its inception. The infrastructure of the internet, the thing that almost literally everyone uses, is held up by the fact that advertising infiltrates every aspect of our online experience. As advertisers, we are the grubby workers that keep the cogs turning. That's a big fucking deal. The amount of responsibility that we have as operators within the industry goes up exponentially when you stop to think for a moment. This also leads to the practices of advertising that I take issue with. With the dissemination of ads at an unconscionably high number, this goes back to my original point. Most ads freaking suck. The average quality and impact of an ad is so terrible, and that's really unfortunate when I think about it. In the age of information, Google and Facebook's data harvesting machines lend credence to the idea that advertisers have the ability to know better than their constituents. And to some degree, that's true, but it's so damn trite at times. It takes real talent to be able to dig into the data points and extract the meaningful insights within. Don't fall for the trappings of surface-level thinking that puts big data on an infallible pedestal. Statistics and percentages are not a replacement for creative thinking and human understanding. Data is a tool, and all advertising executions need to be meaningfully complemented by data-driven insights. Over-reliance on data leaves room for executions to get pigeonholed into a scenario where there's no opportunity, only fog on a sunless morning. Great advertising needs to be fueled by creativity, which in this industry means the ability to solve problems. Data doesn't solve problems on your behalf. It only informs the navigation towards making positively impactful decisions with imperfect information. It is a wild industry with so much potential to do good, and it really falls flat at times, which is super disappointing. That's the reason I espouse all my opinions on the truth of advertising. It's because I have hope that my truth will become the truth as time goes on. So when I say that most ads suck, they do. They're the one that sees advertising as a means to achieve the bottom line, to sell more widgets and brag about media impressions. And yeah, that's fine, I guess, but there's room to do far better. And when I see an ad that's actually good, I'm hopeful. There's some really great stuff out there. I just want more impactful, culturally disruptive stuff. I want to see an industry where creative thinking and problem solving is the cornerstone of all operators within it. So here's my call to all industry professionals. Let's continue to build upon the truth of brands and amplify their honesty in the best way that we can imagine. Let's build an industry where creative communication amplifies messages that meaningfully disrupts culture. While most ads suck, we can make more of them suck less.